Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate, ringsidenews.com. WWE TLC is now in the rear view mirror, but we have a roadblock ahead of us, and it's not just any roadblock, it is the end of the line. Roadblock coming up in less than 2 weeks. Got your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift with the hashtag PAIV. First one today comes from Gary O'Sullivan. Hey Aaron, with John Cena close to turning 40, do you see him doing what The Rock did and leaving WWE to do movies and TV shows? It's quite possible. Now, John Cena did say that he would always be a part of WWE, but the fact is, John Cena, as you mentioned, is getting into his 40s. And historically, we've seen guys in WWE, top guys in WWE, have a falling out with the company at some point. We saw it happen with Bruno, Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, The Rock, and the list goes on. There have been reports about John Cena being frustrated with his role in the company, and some reports about Cena being unhappy with how much guys like Goldberg and Brock Lesnar are getting paid to do a part-time gig. Who knows what the truth is or how much of that is actually true when it comes to John Cena. We know John Cena has more or less been an exception to that general rule. John Cena seems to be the very definition of a company man that does whatever he's asked to do and always has a smile on his face. But let's face it, John Cena is a human being just like the rest of us, and it doesn't matter how strong you are, everyone has a breaking point. And I think perhaps with John Cena, he is seeing opportunities to do other things outside of WWE. He's got this gig coming up on Saturday Night Live. He has movie opportunities. I think if you're looking at it from John Cena's perspective, you have a chance to do other things, and as you're getting older, your body's starting to break down. I think that John Cena would be a fool to not take advantage of some of those opportunities, and hopefully WWE will do what's best for John Cena. If not, if they try to keep John Cena around on a full-time schedule, there could be some issues between John Cena and WWE. I mean, it's inevitable with John Cena getting older. Eventually, he has to be phased out for the younger talent, and that's already starting to happen. So, like I said, if John Cena wants to be able to go and do other things and work a part-time WWE schedule, I say that's best for business. I think that's the right way to go. You have to focus on the future. This one comes from Beast Slayer. With WWE thinking John Cena would not leave, who would be a better opponent for The Undertaker? That's a great question, and that's all the more reason why I think WWE should do John Cena versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Now, some are arguing that if John Cena is not going to be around, if he's going to be a part-timer at best, then maybe it's not a good idea for Cena to actually retire The Undertaker. So it comes down to, is The Undertaker going to do another match past this year's WrestleMania? I mean, I've said this for years. John Cena versus Undertaker is a match that WWE should do for WrestleMania, and I really feel the time's running out with Undertaker's career winding down and Cena's career starting to wind down in WWE. I would take advantage of that match when possible, and if they can do it for this year's WrestleMania, I say do it. Now maybe Undertaker just wins his retirement match. If it's going to be his last match, he beats John Cena and retires. I would be fine with that. If John Cena's not going to be around, then I would be fine with Undertaker beating Cena. But if Cena is going to stick around on a somewhat full-time schedule, then maybe it would not be the worst thing for Cena to retire The Undertaker. Some would say that Cena doesn't need it. Now, let's talk about alternative matches for the Undertaker. There's not a lot of options at this point. I mean, you could do Finn Balor, but I think because of his injury, it's not a good idea right now. I think it would have been better if Finn Balor had been more established on the main roster. You could do somebody like a Samoa Joe or even a Kevin Owens. But again, Kevin Owens hasn't really been built up as a dominant Universal Champion. If he was being pushed as a monster, then yeah, I would say Kevin Owens would be a great opponent for The Undertaker. And then there's also the talk about AJ Styles. Maybe instead of doing it at the Royal Rumble, they could do that at WrestleMania. That might be one of the best options, doing Undertaker versus AJ Styles, the Phenom versus the Phenomenal One at WrestleMania. But beyond 3 or 4 guys, there's not a lot of options, and it's not like WWE has that next big star who's going to be the next Undertaker, the next Phenom. There's nobody that you really have in that role. So it is tough to come up with a suitable opponent for The Undertaker at WrestleMania, but AJ or Kevin Owens, one of those guys might end up being the best alternative to John Cena. Got this one here from Shane Fella. Do you think it's disrespectful to The Undertaker if he wins the title and then they make him drop it to Cena? Like I said, not necessarily. I mean, John Cena, I think Undertaker would be perfectly fine putting over John Cena. I mean, I'm sure Undertaker has a tremendous amount of respect for Cena. I think that that's not an issue. I think the issue would be, can you create a new star by having somebody beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania? And again, is John Cena going to be around on a regular basis past WrestleMania? Those are the two big questions when it comes to, would it be disrespectful for Undertaker to put over John Cena? I don't think it's disrespectful. It's a question of whether it's the best business decision or not. And I think you have to look at the various factors and determine what the best business move is. This one comes from Coffee Jingle Records. Would it be better to turn Jericho or keep him as an entertaining heel? I think when it comes to the feud with Kevin Owens, if there is going to be an eventual Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho match, then I think that Chris Jericho should be the face. Typically, I would go with having the veteran as the babyface, and if Kevin Owens just destroyed Chris Jericho and ran him out of the WWE, they could do some sort of angle to write Chris Jericho off of the storylines while Jericho goes off to resume his work with Fozzy. They could do a big angle to generate some massive heel heat on Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens being the guy that took Chris Jericho, the legend, off of WWE television, and they could run with that and make Kevin Owens this ultimate heel. So the way I see it, with Jericho leaving soon, I think it makes the most sense for Jericho to go out as a babyface and have Kevin Owens get some serious heel heat by having Jericho be taken off television, Owens being the guy responsible to write Jericho off of television. This one comes from Wanki. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not even sure. Could you see The Miz becoming WWE Champion in 2017? And he's sending this to Jeff Meacham, yet he's using the PAIV hashtag. So I'm not sure if this is for me or for Jeff, but I'm answering it anyways. I feel he's the top heel on SmackDown Live. Your thoughts? I doubt it. I don't see The Miz becoming WWE Champion again. Yes, he has been doing some really solid work this year. I mean, I would say for sure 2016 has been The Miz's best year in WWE since 2011 when he was the WWE Champion, or even 2010 when he won the title. I mean, some would say 2010 was even better because by the time WrestleMania came along, Miz was already starting to become a background player in the whole feud between John Cena and The Rock. Miz is doing great stuff. There's no question about it, but I sense he's not going to be given a main event push again. Now, I could be wrong. It might happen, but it seems like the focus is on AJ. Maybe they could turn AJ face at some point and have The Miz challenge AJ. That might be an interesting feud. That's something they could do, but I think it's more likely WWE will eventually do AJ versus Bray Wyatt, AJ versus Randy Orton. I think those guys will be next in line at some point to face AJ rather than The Miz. I just think it's a long shot. I think you would need several guys getting injured or something happening for The Miz to leapfrog ahead and get another main event push. But anything can happen. I mean, never say never. This one comes from Brandon. Do you think WWE is building The Miz up for a best of best IC championship match with Jericho, The Miz, and Dolph Ziggler? I doubt that's what they're building towards. I think they're just trying to make the IC title more credible in general, and The Miz has been doing a terrific job of that. I really do not want to see another Miz versus Ziggler match. I think it's beyond played out now. I think it's time to go in a different direction with both guys and maybe even turn Ziggler heel. I'm not sure what you do with Ziggler at this point. They could do maybe an IC title invitational at some point. I mean, that would always be an interesting idea, to have a bunch of former IC champions, maybe even do a tournament with the winner getting a shot at Miz. But doing like Jericho versus The Miz, I mean, to me that doesn't make sense right now with Jericho feuding with Kevin Owens. So I just don't see that particular scenario that you mentioned playing out. But maybe they will do something at some point where they have a battle of the greatest IC champions. I mean, it could happen someday, but not in the way that you mentioned with those three guys. This one comes from Kian Martin. Becky Lynch dropping the belt so quickly. Was that the wrong call? Kevin Dunn's dislike doing bad business for SmackDown's women's title. I'm not sure if that was because of Kevin Dunn or not. I mean, there's been reports about Kevin Dunn not being a fan of her accent. I mean, I mentioned this during the predictions video for TLC with Jeff and David Payne. We talked about how if there was ever a match for Alexa Bliss to win the title without making Becky look weak, it would have been that match, because it's a tables match and you can have the heel win without the face being pinned or made to submit. So that was a way WWE could have a title change and keep Becky Lynch strong. They could do a rematch. Becky could very well win the title back. I mean, that's a possibility. Maybe they're going to turn Becky heel at some point to feud with Nikki. I would not be surprised to see Becky versus Nikki at WrestleMania for the SmackDown Women's title. And if that's the case, we could see Becky as a heel. And as I've talked about in previous videos, she's talked about how she liked being a heel on the Indies. I could see that playing out. That could be the beginning of a heel turn for Becky Lynch. Her showing some frustration, that post-match interview she did after losing. So we'll see. We'll see if WWE goes in that direction, or if Becky just wins the title back right away. I mean, that could end up happening as well, or maybe she just keeps losing and the frustration builds and she finally snaps and turns heel. That could also happen. All right, this one comes from Just Josh. What are your thoughts on there already being 3 different cruiserweight champions in 2016 isn't even over? I think it's a mistake in general to hot potato the title, especially after you had that Cruiserweight Classic tournament with these guys going through all those matches to crown a new champion, and then the champion loses the title relatively quickly. And I wasn't a fan of how TJ lost the title, basically falling for Brian Kendrick's trap like a stupid babyface, and now you have Rich Swann as the champion. I mean, I guess if they keep Rich Swann as the champion for a while, you could salvage the title, but I mean, I do feel that it's important to establish the title right away, and just like with the Universal title, I think they've made a mistake of booking Kevin Owens the way they've been booking him. I think the first champion, and Finn Balor was technically the first champion, but he had to relinquish the title. I think Kevin Owens should have been just booked as a total dominant badass champion. And with the Cruiserweight division, yeah, you want to have the first champions be really dominant so you can establish the title as something that's very credible, rather than have it go back and forth like a hot potato. So I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I mean, I think there's still time they can salvage it and make the title meaningful. This one comes from JJA Sports Studio. Do you think WWE would be more successful if they only had Big Four pay-per-views as in the 80s and early 90s? No, I think that would be very bad for WWE at this stage of the game. The fact is, business changes. The industry has changed. Back then, pay-per-view was something that was new, and WWE had the Saturday night's main event specials. Then they started increasing the pay-per-views, and they started making more money off of the pay-per-views by doing monthly pay-per-views. Even though the buy rates dropped because there were more shows, WWE started charging more for the pay-per-views, and they were actually making more money by increasing the amount of pay-per-views and raising the prices of the pay-per-views. But now it's a whole different business model with the network, and you want people to stay subscribed, and the biggest perk of the network right now is having the monthly pay-per-views. I mean, that alone is worth the $9.99, and I think that's the number one reason people subscribe to the network, is to get the monthly pay-per-views. If you only did 4 a year, that would lead to people unsubscribing for 8 of those 12 months. I mean, I'm sure some people would stick around for the various content, whether it's the originals or the on-demand stuff. One thing I always thought maybe WWE should have done was made the big 4 pay-per-views available only on traditional pay-per-view, and then have the other 8 pay-per-views or 10 pay-per-views, whatever they're doing now, have those pay-per-views on the network, but keep the big 4 pay-per-views as pay-per-view exclusive and not on the network, for 30 days or whatever. I think that might have been a better idea, but WWE decided to go with every single pay-per-view as part of the network deal. And, they're making money. Maybe they're not making quite as much as they were hoping, but, they're still profitable. So, it's hard to question what they're doing when they're making money. Got this one here from Mr. Yuck. Who are some top picks of stars who never won a title? I think he's talking about world title here. Jake the Snake tops my list. Tatanka, Beefcake, and Snuka kind of follow. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's talking about any title in general. I mean, it's hard for me to think of guys that never won any title, but you did mention Jake Roberts. I think he would be at the top of the list. Of course, with the world title. Guys that were never world champion, I would say Roddy Piper would be at the top of the list. I would say Jake. I would say Jake because Jake was such a big star, but he never held any title that I can recall. Never the IC champion, never a tag team champion, never the WWE champion. And back then you had a lot more guys that never won a title because the titles were more protected and you didn't have all the title changes. If Jake Roberts or Tatanka or one of these guys you mentioned came along during the Attitude Era or during today's era, there would be a much greater chance of them being a champion just because there's so many titles and so many title changes. But back in that era, you did not have a lot of title changes, and you only had the world title, the IC title, and the tag team title. So it's not like you had a whole bunch of mid-card titles like a US title or a TV title or anything like that. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already at youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding the upcoming Roadblock End of the Line pay-per-view. And make sure you keep voting in the 2016 NoDQ.com Year-End Awards. With that being said, I will see you guys next time.